like I said, currently a PhD student at Purdue. I spent some time during undergrad at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, and while there, I was the first STEM Academy president for our NSF grant, multi-million dollar grant that we got from NSF to increase the number of minorities going into STEM fields. And while still in undergrad, we actually started an LSAMP chapter. And so I was able to help actually with some of the grant writing process for that and help the leadership team on campus bring that program on board. So I still try to mentor and support those students that are in the STEM Academy and LSM chapter. During undergrad, I interned every summer. I actually also did a research internship with Norfolk State University, but from an operations and engineering perspective, I worked with Kellogg's, Caterpillar, and did a co-op with Lockheed Martin. And then I worked full time in a leadership development program with Johnson and Johnson, and also worked as a production supervisor with Eaton, where I managed about 30 employees. So spent a lot of time mentoring students, working with my employees on building their resumes, and currently I do some motivational speaking and educational consulting work with my twin sister in the areas of STEM education and women's and youth empowerment. So that's currently what I'm doing right now. And we'll go ahead and just roll into the topic. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box, or at the end, John and I will open it up and you can ask any questions that you have to myself, to the group, etc. So to me, there are 5 key areas as far as getting the most that you can get out of LinkedIn. And and these are kind of in an order, but they're all very important. So it's not really order of importance; it's just really an order of how you should do them. So the first one is it's very important. It's first off is your title and the picture that you have, because these are the first 2 things that someone who goes to your page will see. If I'm a graduate school recruiter or a representative from a company, and I want to look for a current chemist that's a senior and undergrad and want to bring them on as a grad student, I'm going to search for particular things in your title. So you want to make sure that your title and your picture are on point. Your picture is important because we are touchy feely people, regardless of people will admit it or not. And depending on how your picture looks, will really kind of determine if I feel that you are a professional person, you're a good fit for my organization. Fortunately and unfortunately, people do make first impressions based on, titles and pictures or whatnot. So make sure you do that. I see someone is typing a question. Is everything okay? Can you hear me? I'm guessing everything's good. So to touch base on the title and picture piece a little bit more, I actually have an example for you. Brian Jackson is actually a colleague of mine who worked with me at Eaton Corporation, and his LinkedIn page is really phenomenal. He's been in the industry a little bit longer than me, so I actually wanted to use his page. And you'll see here he has a very professional photo, suit and tie, not doing anything goofy. And his title states exactly what he's doing. He's got program in there, quality. He has that he's a manager. He has the company name, and even with his location, everything is in there. What industry he's in, airlines and aviation, everything linked to what he's currently doing is here. So if someone goes to their page, they know right off the bat what he does. He's very professional. He even has SSGB, which in engineering or management is just Six Sigma Green Belt. So it's a very important certification that he felt it was important enough for him to even put after his name, similar to if someone had a PhD or a master's degree, etc. Putting that MS there, if someone is looking for someone with a master's degree, it's there, it's visible, they know they have it. So that's an example of just the title and the picture and how you need to make sure you have that on point. Going back to the slide, the second thing I would say is really a standout summary and solid experience entries. You really want to make sure that the summary that you have on your LinkedIn profile is on point. Outside of your title and your picture, this is the first thing and probably the only thing a recruiter or someone that wants to learn more about what you're doing will look at. And so here's an example of a summary, and it is Brian's. This is his summary. And you'll see it's very organized, it's very to the point, it's bulleted, it's high level. He has some numbers in there, quantitative data, how long he's been working is right there in like the first sentence, um, countries that he's worked in. Your summary should really get right to the point of what it is you do, what it is you want to do, and what value you feel like you would bring to the company. Even at the bottom, he has specialties, Six Sigma. He kind of touches basically on those certifications all in one nutshell. So once again, this is the information you want to have there. If someone was coming to your page and this is all they were going to read, and there's nothing wrong with reaching out to your mentors, having them to review this, say, hey, am I missing anything based on the experience and expertise that I have? How can I make this even better? So don't be afraid to reach out and get feedback for this section. And tapping into the solid experience entries, you'll see here that he has, two particular jobs that he did. He has the time frame that he did the job, where he worked. But once again, it's very organized. It's in bulleted format. The sentences are not too long. Like for Eden, he only had 2 lines that were two lines that went to a second line. He kept it very concise. And keywords that are used, like facilitate. He says, right here, facilitate the maintenance of quality management. And he says lead improvement teams. Keywords like I managed this, I assisted with this, I was the leader on this. Key, action words that really catch the eyes of the recruiter or the person looking at your profile. So yeah, I thought that was really good. Make sure you're not putting anything in your entries, in your job entries that you did not do. This is a big mistake that some people make. They'll say, "Oh, I led this project, this $300,000 project, and managed the people on the project." But then when they sit down in an interview, comes to find out they really didn't lead the project. They led a portion of the project, but they didn't take out time to really accurately communicate that. So it came up in their interview, and to a recruiter or interviewer, it may seem like you're trying to exaggerate what you did. So make sure you don't say or talk about anything that you didn't actually do, or talk about it in a way as if you led it or you played a particular role that you didn't play. So make sure you do that. All right, so that is quick summary of the standout summary, what you need to put there, and also your experience entries. So kind of going back to the chart, another key thing, and this is number 3, is make the right connections. So I always like to joke because you get on Facebook sometimes and you'll add every friend that requests you, and you may connect with people more on a personal level. But on LinkedIn, it's great to add your friends, but you want to add people that are in the areas that you're trying to go into. So add people that are in those areas you want to go into, and even add people that work for the companies you want to work for. If you're on the job market, look for recruiters, and you'll hear me say that, look for recruiters, because recruiters linked to the organizations you're interested in are the ones on LinkedIn looking for your profile. Recruiters are on LinkedIn for that reason, to look for people to hire. A lot of colleagues of mine have gotten jobs directly through LinkedIn because they went online, they did the research on companies and organizations that were in the spaces that they want to work in, and they simply added the recruiters on LinkedIn. You'll see the last bullet that I have says there are some add a friend constraints, but not too many. So you'll have pretty high up people in certain organizations that won't allow you to add them as a friend unless you have their email address, which I understand that. But for the most part, with recruiters, they will allow you to add them as a friend. And when you add them, send them a nice short message stating why you're adding them. So let them know, hey, my name is Marsha, Marsha K. Hutchinson. I want to, I'm very interested in Procter and Gamble. I noticed the, recent projects that you all are working on, and I would love to set up some time to speak with you a little bit more. I'm available, Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays via Skype or phone. And here's my contact information as well. Looking forward to hearing from you. Do that. So you're not just another person adding them as a friend, because LinkedIn does have a default message that just says, hey, I would like to add you to my LinkedIn network. You don't want to be that person. You want to let that recruiter or that individual know exactly why you're adding them as a friend on LinkedIn, or the connection on Facebook. So make sure, like I said, you're adding people that are in those spaces that you want to be in, and also people that you've worked with before. So make sure you keep in contact with those people you've done an internship with, or that you met at a conference. Add them on LinkedIn and follow up with them. I always tell people your network is your net worth. The people that you know that you can add value to their network, and also they can add value to your network and what you're doing, the more powerful you will be. So make sure you make those connections, make the right connections. So going back to the chart, going to be going a little bit back and forth. Give recommendations. If you have interned with someone and they're on LinkedIn, go find them, add them as a connection, and leave a recommendation and said, hey, I worked with Michelle. She was phenomenal. She was on work every time, every day. She stayed late. She was willing to help me out when I needed help. And I learned so much from her. Let that be known. That's a great way for you to be able to help them capture that. And I'm going to give you an example of Brian. Brian has so many recommendations from people on LinkedIn, and he's done the same thing. He's left a lot of recommendations as well. And you'll see some examples here where, people that he works with in different areas, like, electronic engineer from Lockheed said, Brian Jackson is detailed oriented. He's hardworking. He's an organized person. He has great interpersonal skills, and he's, a pleasure to be around. It's not too much. It only takes a second to do. And to have people leave this on your page is a big deal. I've got a colleague now who's currently works for Raytheon, and he's headed out to Google for an interview. A recruiter from Google found his LinkedIn page, saw where people had left him recommendations like this, and then they said, hey, do you want to come out to California and do an interview? He didn't even apply for a job. He didn't even apply. And so that's a perfect example of where companies, especially a lot of these newer companies and organizations, are going on LinkedIn looking for people like you. And it makes their job a lot easier if you've got 15, 20 people that let you a recommendation about your work and what you do. It's kind of like they've already interviewed you. They know you would be a great person for them to hire, because, it's difficult to find 15 people to write such positive reviews about you unless that is the type of work that you're bringing to the table. So definitely take out time to do that. Leave those recommendations, and folks will leave recommendations for you as well. And if there's somebody that you would like for you to leave a recommendation, you can actually send them a message and say, hey, Trina, would you mind leaving me a recommendation on my page? And I'm like, sure. And so I'll go leave them a recommendation. So going back to the chart, the last thing really is, join groups and stay active with posts. So one thing about LinkedIn is that there are several different opportunities to join groups. Some people think that LinkedIn is just for industry and that it's only for people that work for companies. And that is absolutely not the case. There are, I'll give you a prime example. Procter and Gamble actually has a conference that they do every year. I found out about this on LinkedIn, and it is for PhD students that are in research. And so, they have a group on LinkedIn, and you join that group, and you get to hear the conversations about folks that are in research and, in PhD programs that want to go into industry, or maybe they don't want to go into industry, and they were able to find that out by joining this group and hearing the stories from P&G employees about what they actually do. and also what's expected of them once they get in. So make sure you join and search for those different groups that are in the area of interest for you. There are many women that are in science and engineering, and you can get on LinkedIn and join these groups where women are sharing very personal stories about their experience as an undergraduate chemistry student in a predominantly male department, or their experience, working in an industry as the only engineer or the only mathematician or statistician, and sharing their stories of struggle and also success. And so you get to almost join a family to a certain extent, and see how, wow, I'm not the only person dealing with these challenges. I'm not the only person that, failed calculus and I have to retake it, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get through it the next time. All types of stories and experiences from a professional standpoint, both industry and research, are being shared on LinkedIn. And so join those groups, and so that you can be a part of that. Another thing is, make comments just like you do on Facebook. If someone posts a article online linked to like the New York Post, or link to your university or something, make comments, like the post, say, hey, great post. You never know who may say like, oh, I see Beth, you left a message, on my post. Let me go look at her profile, or let me go look at his profile or their profile to see what they're doing, what are they up to, so I can learn more about that person. The more you put yourself out there and make your presence seen or known on LinkedIn, the higher chance you have of being contacted back, or hearing about opportunities that are out there. And I'll give you another example. Even outside of LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. I'm a avid Twitter user, and I actually got connected with Michelle. Many of you may know Michelle Quirk at IUPUI, and I actually got connected with her because she saw my Twitter page, and I had in my Twitter account that I was a speaker and I was passionate about STEM education. And so I actually was able to come and speak at an event with her because of that connection that I made on Twitter. And so I would definitely say make sure that you're commenting on these posts, you're joining these groups, you're liking the messages and stories that people are posting, so you can build your network that way. And then look for different messages, posts, and things that are being posted in the area that you're in, because that allows you to gain more knowledge about what's going on in that space as well. And so, for example, you may have, certain companies that are moving up in the diversity and inclusion rankings because they now have 30% computer scientists. That type of information is not just posted in dissertation proposals and research papers. A lot of that information is being shared on LinkedIn. Just like we talk about Twitter, because Twitter gives you some of the most up to date information, right? When different issues across the United States, political, in the education industry are taking place, Twitter is one of the first places that you can go to and find out what's trending, what's happening, what's going on. It's the same thing for LinkedIn. It is the exact same thing for LinkedIn. When you get on LinkedIn, that is the one of the best ways for you to find out what's going on in industry. What companies are hiring chemists that don't want to, do research. They want to go and actually work on innovative projects in chemistry. LinkedIn is the place that you need to be at. So even in addition to, creating your profile so that you can have more connections and you can meet new people, it's a great way to learn and stay active and build your network. So make sure you're doing those things. I know we have some folks that joined on a little bit late, and I actually went through these slides pretty quickly. But what I'll do is I will, let me see, I think, yeah, outside of that, I just have my information, but I'll go back through, I'll go back up to the main table, and kind of just walk through that again for some of the folks that just joined. So pretty much, and we'll have time to ask questions, but pretty much, what I talked about is the importance of your title and picture. It's very important for you to make sure that your title speaks to where you are right now, and your picture is very professional. and very on point, because it's the first thing that recruiter sees, a recruiter or someone looking for you or someone that wants to learn more about you will see. And I use my friend Brian Jackson as an example. And so this just gives you an idea of his page and what he has. The second thing that I talked about was having a standout summary and solid experience entry. So with a standout summary, like I mentioned before, it's very concise, it's very to the point. He has all of the bullets there. It's not too much, it's not too little. And when these recruiters and folks that want to learn more about you go to your page, this may be all that they read. So you want to make sure that this section is on point. Um, the other thing is your experience entries. Make sure your title is on point. Once again, you have your dates that you worked for the company in order. Make sure that it's very organized. You should never have more than 2 lines. 3 is too many. You'll see he doesn't have anything that's more than 2 lines, except for I think down at the bottom. But it's very concise words, and he has some key things in there, so that's okay. Shouldn't have too many, and it's right on point. It's very concise. Um, and don't put anything in there that you didn't actually do, because an interviewer very well may ask you about something that you put in there, and you want to be able to speak to it. Make the right connections. Don't just add your friends, add people in the areas and the spaces and the companies that you want to be a part of or that you're interested in. Even if you have hobbies, if you like music, something completely out of your area, join people in that space. Maybe that's something you want to do a little bit more of outside of your job. LinkedIn is the place to do that. So make sure you're doing that. And when you contact them, remember, have a very personal message that's direct and to the point. Make sure you do that. And so give recommendations. This is just like giving feedback. There are people getting jobs solely based off of the recommendations that people are giving them. That lets an employer know that they really don't have to question your character or your work ethic, because you've got all these people giving you feedback. People in high up positions, people with PMP and professional engineering certifications. So make sure you're giving recommendations so that you can get some recommendations in return. Okay. And then, as I mentioned, before, the last topic I talked about was joining groups. Join groups, stay active, and go to LinkedIn to learn. LinkedIn is a great place to learn all kinds of stuff. The hottest things going on in industry, the hottest things going on in research, from venture capitalists to industries, industry companies to higher education. If you don't know if you want to become a professor or not, if you're struggling with trying to figure out if you're going to grad school, there are numerous posts and numerous people talking about why they chose grad school over industry, or why they chose industry before grad school, or they were an engineer, why they went and got an MBA versus going to get a master's in engineering. All of these conversations are taking place by people just like you. Women dealing with issues in industry, or men dealing with issues, or international students dealing with challenges. And all of this information is shared. Successes, pros and cons are shared on LinkedIn. So take full advantage of those groups and stay active with those posts. Very similar to Facebook. And so I know I finished a little bit early. I know I went through that fairly quickly, but I always like to leave room for questions, because I do believe students will have questions that are very important, just as important as the information I'm sharing that may be helpful to other participants in the room. So with that being said, I've got some of my information here. I got my website. I do a lot of work with my twin sister, domestically and internationally. So I share some of that with you, and my contact information. And please don't ever hesitate to email me with any questions. And so with that being said, John, you can go ahead and open it up. And I hope that everyone will have at least one question or comment that you can share with the group, so we can all kind of grow and learn in this space. Okay, great. Yeah, use the chat room to ask questions, and I'll answer them. No questions? Yeah, don't be shy. There's no dumb questions. Yeah, great question, Michelle. How do you know which friends to add? So Michelle, tell me which area are you in, and where are you at in school? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. And what I'll go ahead and say now, I'll give you a prime example as well. I know many of you may go to LSM conferences, different events. Oh, great. Yeah, you're young. That's wonderful. Get an early start. And so, yeah, when you go to conferences, for example, I go to the National Society of Black Engineers Conference every year faithfully. And whenever I go to those conferences, when I leave, anyone that I met, that I just, even if it was a small connection, I will add them. I will find them on LinkedIn and add them as a friend, and I will send them a personal message saying, "Hey, it was great meeting you at NSBE. If there's any way that I can help you in the future with your work, let me know. I'm a message away. So I would say like if you're in bioengineering, if you go to the next LSM conference or MC MCE conference, make it a goal to say, hey, I want to leave here with at least five people's names that are in biomedical engineering or in engineering in general that I would like to stay in contact with because let's say y'all just hit it off, and you want to stay in contact with them, you'll know, hey, that's a person I want to add. Now, if you're on LinkedIn, yeah, if you're on LinkedIn and you're just looking for people to add, I would say, for example, you're in bioengineering, I would start researching online first. What are some top bioengineering master's programs? They're thinking about graduate school, or what are some top bioengineering companies? Once you have those company names or you have those universities, you can go to LinkedIn and start typing in the company names, and people that work for those companies names will pop up, and you can go look at their profile for the most part and say, hey, oh wow, I like let's say somebody named Kim Parker came up and she was a bioengineer for Raytheon or something, and you really liked her profile. Let's say she did outreach work in addition to working for that company. Send her a message and say, hey, I'm a bioengineer. I love your profile. I would like to hear more about your experience with that company. I'm thinking about doing an internship with them, etc. And then you've made a connection, and you never know. That may be the person that can help you get an internship with that company. You just never know what can come out of it. But I always tell people you're an email away from getting a job. You're an email away from getting an internship. You're a text away from being able to have what it is you need. So use LinkedIn to your benefit. Take that. Make time for it. Make time for that. All right. Anybody else have a question? So Michelle said, should we add people from our classes? So you're talking about your current classes that you're taking at your university? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you never know when you may take a class your freshman year, Cal 1, then your second year you're taking Cal 3 or thermodynamics or something, and you may end up in the same class with that student, and that's somebody you can join as a group partner or something. Just say, hey, you know, uh, and you can also make that connection with your classmates in class. But absolutely, once again, you never know what your classmates are going to go on to do. My twin sister used to work for President Obama, and one of the key individuals that she would communicate with often was one of his classmates from law school, and his name is Spencer. And Spencer would always used to say, who would have known that my classmate from Harvard, even though they were at Harvard, would go on to become president. So absolutely, they didn't have LinkedIn, but we do. So that's an option. That's definitely a good option for you to be able to keep in contact with folks that are your classmates. You never know; they may go work for a company, and you're 23, 24, fresh out of undergrad. Something happens with your company, you're looking to move, and that may be the very person you contact to try to go get a job with their company. So yeah, add them on LinkedIn. Thanks, Michelle. Any more questions? We got to have at least two more. At least two more questions. Okay, Michelle's on it. Let's see. Uh, what are the most relevant skills to add? How do you shape your skills section? I would definitely say look at examples because I could tell you some stuff, but actually looking at some LinkedIn profile examples of folks that are in your same area is going to be one of the best ways to do it. Like I said, um, I showed you Brian's, and I'll go back to like a slide that he had that I felt like was really good. Um, for yeah, right here, because if you got somebody in your area, you can kind of see how you should word things. It'll be similar to how they word it, but it all depends on what you're doing. So if you're a bioengineer and you go do an internship with a hospital or something, you're gonna, just talk to exactly what you did. Um, if you had a boss that had you to work on a project, you managed a project that helped to organize out, different, or work with the system. Let's say he had you working with one of their internal systems so they could organize out things better and get through the database better. You would say that. You would say, I managed a major project looking at our database system and ensure that it was, easy to understand. And, you know, whatever you did, you'll be able to talk through it, but look at examples. And once again, it's just like your resume. You're basically slapping your resume onto the internet. That's technically what you're doing with LinkedIn. And you should definitely be talking to your professors and your mentors at your university to say, hey, I summed up what I did at this internship. This is what I did. What am I missing? Is this right? Is this accurate? And your bioengineering professor is going to be able to do a little bit better job than maybe me to help you, shape and mold that experience and skills. But talk about those key projects, and really it's wording. Because when you do an internship, you'll do a lot of work, but it's the wording. How do you word what you did? I have high school students I'll mentor that worked at Foot Locker, and I'll say, hey, say that you stayed late. You assisted the store manager with stocking the shelves. You worked extra hours for employees. You stepped up and led when it was time to have debriefs about how well we did for the week. Even as a high school student, it's about wording. You could work at McDonald's and say, hey, I made sure we got our orders out the window, um, in less than a 3 minute cycle time because that data is available. I checked out individuals at the cashier, within a 2 minute time frame. I ensured that customers were satisfied and kept complaints less than 10 per day. This is as a cashier at McDonald's. It's wording. Wording is key, and actually documenting what you did when you do an internship or you go work on a job. Make sure you're documenting and taking notes on a day-to-day, if not day-to-day, weekly basis of what you're actually doing. Because not all the time does a job description say exactly what you did. So you want to make sure you capture everything. I hope that helps, Michelle. Another great question. So, do you ask for recommendations, or do you just wait for people to write them? No. So, LinkedIn actually has an option where you can message. Let's say you're a professor. Let's say you assisted the professor with some stuff, or you're a research assistant and you worked with your advisor or faculty member on campus with research. If they are on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has an option that allows you to request a recommendation from them. So no, you don't have to wait. If you have a boss or even a high school teacher, let's say you did some stuff when you were in high school, because Michelle, I know you're a freshman. Even if you were in high school, you can message your teacher if that person is on LinkedIn and say, hey, I would like for you to write me a recommendation for my LinkedIn page for all the work that I did for you while I was in high school. I was an athlete. If you're an athlete in high school, you can, email your coach if they're on LinkedIn and say, hey, will you write me a recommendation to talk about my leadership skills and how I was on time every day for practice and how I worked really hard and I worked to motivate my teammates. All of those things will contribute towards what you're trying to do. And like I said, recommendations, I'll pull up that slide again. recommendations are key. I mean, I can't stress enough. There are people getting jobs based off of recommendations. You know, look at the last one. Brian is a forward-thinking leader who is very passionate about improving existing processes. Who wouldn't want that type of person on their team? And that's coming from someone else. You know, his name is Gerald Porter. He put himself out there to put in a recommendation for Brian, so he obviously meant it. And so, you know, you have that. And you'll see that, you know, Brian has feedback from folks from different organizations. Well, most of those were with NSBE, but if you were to go to his page, he actually has feedback from every job that he worked at. Somebody gave him a recommendation and gave him feedback. So, like I said, your high school teachers, college professors, research advisors. If you're in LSM or you're in a different group, get some feedback from those folks managing those groups. Ask them to put your recommendation on your LinkedIn page. We got to have at least two more people ask questions. Anything. All right, we got a couple people typing questions. I'll keep my answers short and simple. We'll get out of here a little bit early. Okay, we've got government resumes are usually very long. The regular resumes are usually only one page. What should you do on LinkedIn? And just to go into detail with or get some background information on that comment, it's kind of like the difference between a CV and a resume. So a CV is could be like 10, 15 pages if you're like a faculty member. You literally put every single thing that you've done onto your CV. A resume, to Michelle's point, is typically one page, especially if you're an undergrad. Unless you're a senior and you've done a lot of stuff on campus, your resume should only be one page. And that's my opinion. You should touch base with other folks to see what they think as well. But what I'm noticing with LinkedIn is that it seems to be a little mixed because they have all these different sections that you can add on. Like if you worked on small projects, or if you worked if you have a certification, all of that stuff you'll put there. But I think it just goes back to being concise. You can, you know, in what do you, depending on where you're trying to go, right? Where you're trying to work at, who you want to work with, you should put on your page what you know they will want to see. So I've done a lot of community outreach work. I mean, a lot of community outreach work in STEM education, women's empowerment. Before I shifted over to my PhD in my STEM education, I wouldn't have had so much of that on my page because I was looking for a, you know, engineering or operations job in industry. So I would spend more time talking about my industry experience and I would highlight that more. But once I shifted over to my PhD, I was started to add all of my international work and all of the other things that I did. So really, you can't have too much. The good thing about LinkedIn is people basically can skim and they'll read what they want to read. So it's okay for the most part. But make sure you put things on there that you know someone will find very attractive, something they'll really like. Like, wow, she's not only a bioengineering student, or he's not only a chemist or a physicist, but they also, you know, are very involved outside of their undergraduate, you know, classes and things like that. So yeah, it's just a nice balance. But once again, look at sample LinkedIn pages. Find students. You can easily find, you know, somebody, the title will say undergraduate researcher. undergraduate engineering researcher, and just check out their profile. Some of them you won't be able to access, but I think most of them you will, and kind of just see what they're talking about, see what they got on their page. And it's like not stealing ideas, but you can kind of see what people are using and seeing how you can use it to your benefit. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. Excellent. Thanks for letting me know. I thought people just weren't typing questions. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. So, any other questions? And thanks, Michelle, for typing them in. Thanks for all the students for the questions. And if you could, please type in just each student's first name and what their major is. If it's not too much, it'll be good for me to know because I've got the email addresses, but it'll be good to know what everybody's name is and what they're majoring in currently. Um, and once again, please feel free to email me any questions that you guys and gals have related to LinkedIn. Okay. And I'll pull that back up. Okay, chemistry, great. Civil engineering, right. Kinesiology, okay. And I would definitely want to say to all of the engineering students, um, um, fire protection, okay, fire protection engineering, yeah. I highly encourage you to attend the National Society of Black Engineers National Conference. Next year will be in Boston, and also the Society of Hispanic Engineers National Convention that they have. Because even if you're not African American or of the African diaspora, NSBE is very open to students of all backgrounds. And there are over 300 Fortune 500 companies that go there to recruit on the spot for internships and full time jobs. I know Nova Shea, there are a lot of chemical engineering and chemistry based organizations where a lot of folks that are on LinkedIn are at these conferences, and that's a great way for you to be able to meet them in person. Yep, I see biology, I saw chemistry. Even I know with biology, there's grad school, or you can do. I know some folks that go into dental school with biology or pre med. Definitely look at these conferences, these events, these professional conferences. Um, Attend those as much as you can because that's a great way to meet people and connect with them in person and learn all that you can. Okay, University of Maryland, College Park. Okay, excellent. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, and I'm going to put a plug out there too before we get off. The NSBE has a program called the Summer Engineering Experience for Kids, which is a 3 week camp where we work with kids for in looking at STEM education. So the curriculum spans across STEM, and we are always looking for mentors to serve within that camp. So if you have an open 4 weeks this summer, feel free to visit this website. And you maybe like if you don't have an internship this summer, they do pay a $2,000 non-tax stipend. And we do have a camp in Washington, D.C. And we have camps in 15 other cities across the United States. And so if you have access to housing in any of those cities, feel free to sign up and you can put me down as a recommender. Um, and feel free to spread the word. So yeah, that opportunity is there for anyone interested in that if you like working with students or STEM education type work. So any other questions? All right, excellent. Thank you all so much. And and like I say, I've got my email address right there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, John.